This is my review of Samurai Flamenco. Okay, so this episode marks the end of the King Torture arc and is supposed to kick off the next one. So, in this episode, we actually get a bit of a flashback as to how Marimaya wound up being captured by King Torture in the first place. So, as I alluded to last time I did a review of this, Kono actually did keep up his end of the bargain and actually texted Marimaya the location of King Torture's base of operations, and she and Mo went to go investigate while Mizuki covered for them. And obviously that didn't work out because it has now been several hours later, and they are in fact late to a concert, which becomes a major plot point in the episode. So Marimiya's woken up by King Torture using a bucket, and she becomes completely upset at the fact that King Torture doesn't think of her as the main protagonist of the story. And it's at this point, King Torture reveals something that should become a bit obvious for everybody watching at home, and serves as kind of a wake-up call for Marimaya. She is a terrible superhero. So he points out that she can. So he points out and spits her own words back at her face that she considers her superhero's gig to be an act and a part that she plays, and just isn't truly risking her life because she isn't really prepared to die. She's just doing what she believes a superhero would normally do. And then drives the point home by torturing Mo, who is in the same room and tied to a chair in the same exact room. And when Mo speaks up to actually defend Marimaya, King Torture asks if she would be willing to take her place, which Mo adamantly says yes to. At which point King Torture lets her go, calls and states that she is indeed a very beautiful soul and will refuse to ever harm her again. A fact that he does kind of keep his promise to, because he does wind up dying at the end of the episode, but semantics. But yeah, he uses Mo to drive the point home that Mo selflessly sacrificed herself to save Marimaya's life, and points out that Marimaya just doesn't care about sacrificing her own life, and that's what makes her a pretty terrible hero and a terrible person in general, because she believes the entire world revolves around her, which is evident, and also believe that she's risking her life when she actually is not, and she isn't truly prepared to risk her life. At which point Samurai Flamenco actually shows up at his front door, and the two have a bit of a back and forth. So King Torture, it's revealed in this scene that King Torture actually has cybernetics out the wazoo, and is mostly mechanical at this point. And throughout the speech, Samurai Flamenco is walking through his base, having a back and forth with King Torture, and it's revealed that he and King Torture are kind of the same and are actually pursuing the same goal from different angles. So it's revealed that all of King Torture's monsters actually came to him willingly and got the cybernetics that they needed to become monsters, and the surgery and all that. So he points out the fact that he and his minions are united by their common goal of evil, that makes them stronger than anybody else. And he points out that he actually believes that he's trying to do the right thing, because if everybody's evil, then everybody will just be happy, because as it's pointed out, if everybody's as he points out, that heroes kind of come and go, and the world they leave behind is always a mess. So, a fact that he points out to Samurai Flamenco multiple times. So he points out that the reason he became evil was to help the world by making everybody evil, therefore there's no more conflict, because everybody will get along, because they're all evil now. So, and obviously Samurai Flamenco doesn't agree with that statement, and proceeds to challenge King Torture to the final battle. And King Torture, throughout this entire scene, has been surgically grafting a chainsaw onto his arm, and finally bursts through the wall and attacks Samurai Flamenco. And eventually, throughout the fight, Samurai Flamenco actually gets knocked into King Torture's inner sanctum, which is actually an otaku paradise. So it's revealed that he and Samurai Flamenco are basically the same person, but are also a foil of the same person. So unlike Samurai Flamenco, King Torture did grow up watching the same shows that Samurai Flamenco did, and watched all of the, and grew up watching the same heroes as he did. But he began to sympathize with the villains a bit more, because he pointed out that heroes do risk their lives, but once they're gone, there's really no point to their existence, because now the world is back into chaos, and there's really no change that has happened at all. And points out that he became a villain so that he could see a world of peace, because he wants people to be able to fully, he wants people to be able to be the happiest they can be. And then and as he's doing his speech, he actually pins Samurai Flamenco to a wall with his chainsaw. And Samurai Flamenco refuses to join him when asked, and then while King Torture is making his speech and his proposal to Samurai Flamenco, he actually grabs a Karakiri Sunshine toy off of the floor and blinds King Torture with it before disabling his chainsaw and cutting his arm off, thereby rendering his primary method of attacking Samurai Flamenco completely useless. Meanwhile, Mizuki has realized that Mo and Mari are completely late to their concert, and knowing full well that something has probably happened to him, calls Goto, who shows up at that exact moment in Mari Maya's Jeep and plows King Torture into the wall. And with the two combined, they're able to finally take down King Torture, who lands on top of a standee and is impaled. And he's believed to be dead by both Samurai Flamenco and Goto, and who have a bit of a reconciliation during this, with Samurai Flamenco finally thanking Goto for all he's done, and Goto finally realizing what he means and responding with a "you're welcome." At which point King Torture gets up, because, as I said, he's not actually dead, because as I said again, he has cybernetics out at the wazoo and is basically unkillable for the most part. And at which point King Torture removes the standee from his chest that was keeping him impaled, and reveals his true final plan. He actually planned to unite his cells with the monster cells using a giant rocket that was designed to not only reanimate the monsters that Samurai Flamenco has defeated into giant kaiju, but also dispersing his cells throughout, thereby combining them all with all the monster cells, thereby turning him into a giant hive mind, thereby making the entire world evil. So, yeah, Samurai Flamenco realizing that King Torture is probably going to be able to set off that rocket, instead sends Goto to deal with the rocket while he keeps King Torture busy. And Goto is kind of confused as to how to take down the rocket, but he eventually accomplishes it by driving the car into the side of the rocket, which causes it to collapse. And while King Torture is distracted, Samurai Flamenco reaches into the hole in the middle of King Torture's chest and pulls out the power source that's powering all of his cybernetics, and King Torture dies for good. Meanwhile, Mari Maya have been rescued by Mizuki and Goto, and are on their way to the concert. And in one of the most somber pieces of the entire film and the entire series as a whole, Mari Maya just starts belting out one of the most somber tunes in the entire series, in full superhero costume, all battered and bruised, and you definitely can feel what she's going through here. She's definitely realizing that she's not the kind of hero that she believes she is to be, and this tune and this song definitely displays that in full force. Meanwhile, Goto and Samurai Flamenco, having successfully defeated the bad guy, walk out of the front entrance where they're confronted by a group of paparazzi, and despite Goto's protests, Samurai Flamenco decides to do what no superhero should actually ever do, which is to reveal his identity on live television. And that's how the episode ends. So, yeah, Also, there's a little. Also, we get to see a bit more of the fight with Jun, who is saved by a mysterious character, most likely Joji Konami, because we see his spurs in the shot as he walks in to deal with the heroes, with the villains, to protect his friend. And this episode kind of just ends on that note. That's the way the episode ends. It ends with our old pal Samurai Flamenco. Masayoshi. I sometimes forget what his name is because he doesn't bring up his name all too often. But Masayoshi has indeed revealed his identity to the entire planet, or at least simultaneously. And meanwhile, Kono has observed this entire thing from a television in an airport and is presumably fleeing the country. So, yeah, it makes sense. He's fleeing the country because of what he's done, most likely, and also to get out of the range of King Torture's final battle. But yeah, he points out that he was indeed entertained and thanks King Torture for keeping him entertained, and then leaves on his plane. So we never actually see him again, for the most part. He does show up toward the end a little bit, but not much. He's, for the most part, gone from the series up for a bit of a while. So we never actually see him after this, for the most part. He does show up a little bit at the end, but that's really it. But yeah, this episode is essentially the end of the arc. It's the end of the King Torture arc, and it sets up the storyline for the next one, kind of, sort of, because we don't really see who the next villain is, but it's heavily implied that King Torture got his ability to create these cells from somewhere, and where they actually came from is never really explained until this next story arc. So yeah, this next story arc establishes where King Torture got his cells and his connection with the next villain, kind of, sort of. But it is going to be a very interesting arc, and I will cover it when it comes up. But for right now, if you guys have seen this episode of Samurai Flamenco, what did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also, check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month, and it really helps me out, so I would definitely appreciate it if you did that. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!